Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Everyday Anarchism. I've got a great interview for you today about David Graeber's work, because there's a new collection of essays out called The Ultimate Hidden Truth of the World. I could not recommend it more highly, but the reason why I'm recording this intro is because I screwed up and failed to introduce the guest. There's a decent chance you recognize his voice. The guest today is Shawn from Seriously Wrong. Okay, here's the interview. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Everyday Anarchism. We're here to talk about this book of essays called The Ultimate Hidden Truth of the World. And most things in here I think I had already read, but I'm so excited to have this book out because there's definitely some things in here I hadn't read, but most of the essays that I refer to all the time with Graeber, I think I started this podcast with a quote from Graeber's, "Are you an anarchist? The answer might surprise you." And that's in here. The collection was edited by his wife, Nika Dabrowski, who's also his literary executor. And it's just chock full of great stuff. A lot of which I think you and I have both covered on our respective shows.
But yeah, one of the things, so when we were talking about what to sort of zero in on, I don't know how many pages it is of the 300 pages here, there's a section of the book which is called Against Economics that has a few things, including a discussion he had with Thomas Piketty, an interview that he did with Hannah Appel, and that's also where the original BS Jobs essay is. And then, yeah, the Against Economics piece. The thing that I really like about Graeber's approach to the way that he talks about economics and stuff. For me, like when I was younger in kind of the Occupy era, he was one of the people who kind of gave me intellectual permission to be like, you can sort of be serious about ideas, you can be serious about politics, and you can say, this is all kind of bullshit, right? Like, this is all like these suit wearing guys who worship this god of the economy, and they say that we need to sacrifice X number of babies every year to make the line go up. Like that, I needed permission when I was 21 to like say that position isn't just me like flipping off the way society works. Like that is a serious intellectual position. There are actual genuine issues about the way that economics is treated in our society, and the way that economics is treated as like this prerequisite of politics, that any sort of political intervention needs to be filtered through this economic literalism, that if you want to advocate for something, you need to like show the balance sheets according to all these like bizarre and Byzantine rules that they teach you in universities, they teach you in business schools, you know. And Graeber was one of the figures for me during that time that he really kind of like, yeah, gave me that intellectual permission to be like, no, this is actually bullshit. So it's one of the things that pulled me into really admiring Graeber and really like reading a lot of his stuff. And in the essay Against Economics, which is actually, it's a review of a book, but it's partially summarizing the book and it's mixed with a little bit of his own polemic. But he's just kind of outlining how like our common sense on how economics works, where money comes from, and how the justifications for austerity and so on have been empirically disproven by people who actually work in the banking sector, by people who actually work in economics. And yet those things being disproven were totally insufficient to make any of the political calculus change. People still talk and act as if these things that aren't true are true. And these things, I mean, by no coincidence, benefit the rich, benefit the same people as always. So yeah, and in that, on the subject of intellectual permission, there's this interesting little anecdote in the Finance is Just Another Word for Other People's Debt interview, where he talks about going on German TV talking about his debt book. And he says, when I showed up, there was all these kind of stuffy people who are just saying what they're supposed to say. But then me arriving, because I'm this crazy anarchist, everyone feels they have permission to say what they really think or just float ideas and stuff like that. And I think that is like, for me too, that was part of what I really, really valued about Graeber's economics or counter economics when I first encountered him.
No, I think that's all absolutely right. My story is the exact opposite of yours, which is when I first encountered Graeber, a friend, actually my dissertation director recommended him to me in like 2011 or 12. It was Fragments of an Anarchist Anthropology. I'm not sure if the book Debt had even come out yet. And one thing he's got in there is like, we don't need policy. We don't need, to run all of our decisions by economists. We can just, make our decisions and make the world that we want to have. And I was just pissed. I was like, who does this guy think he is? Like, doesn't he know that there's like serious people who, are serious about the world, and this fucking anarchist just thinks we can do whatever we want and have the world we want. So that was pre-Bernie, early in Occupy, when there was lots of interest about in Graeber's work, and I just thought, I don't need to bother with this guy because he clearly doesn't understand how the world works, because he doesn't acknowledge the god that is the economy and how important it is that we have lawyers and technocrats running things. So I've changed my mind, I think is pretty
Right,
obvious.
that's interesting. Yeah, what was your kind of general were you like a more social democratic then, or like you more?
Yeah, I mean, I was a nice, good, like technocratic Obama liberal,
Right,
you
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
like
No, I thought of Obama when I was just dropping off my kid at daycare and I was driving home, and I thought of Graeber being like this guy who helped fully break the spell of me thinking that Obama had anything to offer the world. Like when I was like 18, like I was never like a huge fan or anything like that, but that was like, yeah, that was in that era was like the spell of, yeah, technocratic kind of like center left liberalism, the best possible of a bunch of bad options kind of
yeah,
politics. That spell was broken for me in the lead up to Occupy. And at that time too, I mean, I'd already become really interested in pirate politics and like intellectual property reform and stuff like that. So I was kind of breaking in a utopian direction already, and I was never like a diehard. I was never like, I never went to, university for poli sci or anything. I never like volunteered on a centrist campaign or something. But yeah, no, Graeber in that era was like, yeah, one of the talking heads that helped me like build my own internal consensus of what a radical break from the current society might look like.
yeah. I guess, I mean, briefly to talk about my position, and we can get to Graeber. I really liked, and I still like this philosopher named Richard Rorty,
Oh
who,
yeah, I actually
if
still like Rorty too. Yeah, no, he's super great.
yeah, but he's kind of considered the like technocrats philosopher, and if you read Rorty's work, basically he thinks that like the tools of technocracy can over time bring about democratic socialism. I mean, that's kind of an oversimplification, but that would be my position, is like, I want the same world that Bernie Sanders wants, and I liked Bernie, but I was like, but we're going to get there, by getting the right policies in place and slowly moving towards it. We're not going to get there certainly through revolution. I mean, I'm still not an advocate for like a Leninist style revolution, but we're gonna get to this utopianism through some sort of centrist gradualism. And so Obama I was a big fan of Obama for that reason. Obviously, the first time Trump won the presidency, since we're recording this after Trump won the presidency again, and then COVID and everything, that's when I was like, oh shit, the world is just made up. I mean, for me, I think maybe more than anything else, what drove me to Graeber, besides the fact that my bosses were assholes and I hated them, was that we had that whole essential worker bullshit where it was like, oh, there are certain workers who are really important and they still have to go to their jobs, and everyone else can just stay home and they can try and do their job on Zoom, but it's not really that important whether they do their job or not. And it was all the people who 5 years ago we have been told were not important to society were suddenly essential. And all of the like really crucial people to society, all the doctors and lawyers, and well, not the doctors, they get a pass on this, but all the lawyers and engineers and tech bros, it was like, yeah, you guys don't have to do your job right now, the economy will run fine without you. And
Yeah,
that was when Graeber suddenly made sense.
right. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For Yeah, for me, in the Occupy era, it was like first realizing that the Pirate Bay was like the biggest library that humanity had ever. Like
Yeah.
when I made that connection that the Pirate Bay was like a library, and that we were trying to like smash out this library that had made my life so much better from the from I was pirating using Kazaa or whatever from the age of 10 or whatever. So my life had been improved, and I knew the music that I listened to, that I was getting to watch in Canada. I didn't get to, Tim and Eric didn't play on TV, so I had to download Tim and Eric. And so like it had brought all the, and Tim and Eric was like my favorite shit ever at the time. So it was like piracy had brought me all this stuff. And like that was one of the things that made me start to think like, okay, well, there's something like rotten about our society that we were not able to access this library. And then around the time of in the lead up to and around Occupy, starting to learn about kind of the implications of income inequality and thinking about this stuff and things like that. So that's when I kind of had the big shift.
Well, I mean, I guess before we swing it back around to Against Economics, I just want to address, the title of the book. The collection is called The Ultimate Hidden Truth of the World. I don't remember which essay that's in. It might be in the What's the Point If We Can't Have Fun essay. It's somewhere in here. But when you look at that, the ultimate hidden truth of the world, and it seems sort of like the idea of the dawn of everything. It's like the idea that Graeber's going to reveal to you the secret truth of everything. I really like the idea, and Graeber talks about this in that essay. What's the point if we can't have fun? This like these iron laws that supposedly dictate everything: the law of evolution, the law of economics, the law of supply and demand. Like, and so the experts can tell you what the ultimate hidden truth of the world is, and you just have to sort of accept it. But instead of giving you an iron law, he says the ultimate hidden truth of the world is something that we all make together, and we can make it differently. And that is, I think, getting back to your idea of like, you're allowed to be serious about the world without obeying the laws of economics. That for me is just huge
Yeah.
coming from Graeber. And I didn't take Bernie Sanders seriously for a while because it was just like, this guy doesn't understand the laws of economics. And so Against Economics, where he's like, actually the laws of economics are pretty much the opposite of what the economists say. That is just liberating.
There's these like suited professionals who there's like this implicit like people need to defer to these emperors, and they're not wearing any clothes. And if you go to school the right way and you have the right education and you read the right books, you can see their clothes. And then you start thinking people are stupid because they can't see the clothes like you do. But the thing is, it's like they really don't have any fucking clothes. Like this whole, the whole bureaucratic, economic, political system of our society is built up by people in suits who are paid a shitload of money, who don't understand the first thing about what is actually going on in the world. And I mean, this for the last like 48 hours or so, we're recording this right after Trump got elected for his second non-consecutive term. And I had mentally put him in the category of clown again somehow. He tricked me.
Yeah.
And he tricked me into thinking he was a clown again. And now that he's elected, I'm like, oh shit, now we've got to deal with, like, now I have to think about this a lot for a long time. But the thing that like really got me like fired up in the last 48 hours is logging onto Twitter and seeing all these suit wearing fucks go on and say, well, know what harmed the Democrats here? They went too far to the left and they listened to Bernie too much. We need to triangulate on transgender people and migrants more. And it's like, holy shit, fuck you, dude. Not only is that evil, it's empirically wrong. Do you have memory? Do you remember what has just happened? In 2020, there was the Sanders-Biden Unity Task Force where they produced a progressive platform together that was based on a mixture between Biden and Sanders ideas. And it wasn't perfect, but it was far more progressive than Obama, far more progressive than fucking Clinton. And then they won the largest margin. They won the most amount of votes that any candidate for president has ever got. And then in the 2021, there was like some vote that went wrong. And then all the talking heads went on TV, all these suit wearing fucks that you can't trust fucking as far as their arm can reach. And they're like, oh, he just lost because they went too far left. We need to triangulate more. And then they did that. They just like abandon all these things. And there's these people like Manchin and Cinema and like who threw out the agenda, blocked the agenda, these moderates screwing up what they had promised they'd do to people. So then effectively the 2020 campaign became a lie because they campaigned on stuff they didn't actually do because these moderates started blocking everything. And that's when fucking opinion started turning on this shit. And then obviously you have the background of global inflation that doesn't help anyone. In terms of incumbency and shit, and we could, like, that's what a lot of people are going to focus on. But like the reality is they ran progressive in 2020, and in 2020 Kamala campaigned on finishing the wall. Like, are you fucking serious? And then you're going to go on TV and say, oh, we use too many pronouns. What the hell are you, like, how are you a serious person? How much do you get paid per year? Well, actually, they get paid over $500,000. They get paid $500,000, $1 million, $2 million a year to be these democratic strategists. The emperor's wearing no fucking clothes. Their job is to prevent anything good from happening. And then anytime that the Republicans win, which boosts their stock portfolio, they go on TV and they blame people like us for having podcasts where we talk about ideas. It's like, well, the Republicans don't like it that there's, you know, people who have anarchist flags in the street. So we need Democrats who are going to promise to kill migrants. It's unconscionable. It would be darkly funny if the consequences were not so dire for people. And I understand that electoral politics is not the beginning and end of politics, and I would strongly encourage anyone listening to be involved in local organizations, democratic organizations, mutual aid organizations, and building community power outside of these institutions. At the same time, it is a travesty that we let these suit-wearing fucks who obey the so-called laws of economics, the so-called laws of politics, lead us off the cliff repeatedly, and then when they get their perfect campaign, everything they wanted, you know, Kamala's a YIMBY now, yay! Kamala's gonna finish the wall, she's triangulating, yay! You know, like this is exactly what they wanted, and it loses, and they're like, oh, we were so left-wing there. It really screwed us. It's like, are you serious? It's like, it's because they believe that a law of the universe is that anything that is bad that happens is because of the left, and anything any form, and pragmatism is synonymous with selling out people who need help. It's sick, and it's because they went to nice schools, they come from rich families, and like this has been getting me like totally. I can barely stand to go on social media right now because I'm seeing all these talking head fucks say this stuff that is going to harm people, and it's empirically wrong. It's like. And I'm not so close-minded that I would like completely shut out the possibility if there was any validity to some argument like, oh, the voters just rejected left-wing shit or whatever. But that didn't even happen. And it's like, and it's the same thing that happens in economics, where you have these empirically disproven ideas about the underlying economics of politics that are themselves this political ideology that's stifling against doing things that actually help people because... And you have a mixture between grifters and true believers that hold it up. And it's absolutely enraging. It's absolutely like disgusting and enraging. Yeah, it's like this has been for like the last 48 hours. I've been like, anytime I look at the internet, I'm just like fuming at these pricks, these lying pricks that they're going to get us all killed. The planet's already fucking boiling. And there was no climate strategy. We're in a climate crisis. And it's like their climate strategy was, oh, well, if you vote for Trump, then he won't keep up the status quo anymore. And it's like, are you serious? The status quo, we're on a trajectory for 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees of warming. And all the measures that have been done by the federal government are totally insufficient to bridge that. It's like, there's the best case scenario was dystopia, and now we've got double dystopia. And then they go on TV and be like, well, next time we should probably just never talk about climate again, and we should throw trans people under the bus more, and that's what's going to convince the voters. And it's like, no, dude, fuck you, man.
Yeah, maybe we can run like Mitt Romney with Liz Cheney as the vice presidential nominee for the Democrats next year, right?
Yeah, we'll get all those crossover Republicans. They're coming any election now. We just need to throw... I'm sorry, we just didn't throw enough babies into the economy machine We'll try harder next time. No, it's really sick. And the commonality here is these very serious people. These people who will look at you with a straight face and they'll tell you something that you can see with your own eyes it is not true, and then they'll act like you're the idiot for noticing the pattern. And that's one of the beautiful things about Graeber's overall work is that he, and not in a mean way, and he rarely gets to the even saying like, you know, the agitation that I'm talking about. He's always got this kind of impish, whimsical quality to him, really. But he I think has helped a lot of people just see how full of shit these people are.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know if we were going to be able to restrain ourselves from talking about the election, given given when this was recorded, and yeah, I don't know what to say. I agree with you. I agree with you. It is the dynamic and against economics is exactly what you're talking about in terms of this, like, you know, Kamala campaigning with Liz Cheney and this idea that like there is an ultimate hidden truth of the world and that it's that you can only do what Wall Street bankers will let you do. And if you try and deviate from that, the world will punish you with a Trump presidency, leaving aside the fact that all of the great, you know, like somewhat social democratic presidencies, Johnson, I would add Biden there, and FDR, although I tend to like FDR's war, they were all warmongers abroad. And that's something that Graeber writes about in Debt, is that like it tends to be that when you do get this economy that works well for people and breaks the rules, both the economic and moral rules that the Wall Street people insist that we must have, you know, massive suffering of the population in order to protect prosperity or whatever the fuck they're talking about. It does seem that does tend to go with exploitation and invasion of other countries for those resources. And Graeber in Debt traces this back to ancient Athens. So this is idea of like, you know, tends to be these things come with wars. And obviously Biden had his war too, and I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. I'm spluttering, but fuck yeah.
Another thing that he says in The Shock of Victory, when he's talking about, we did an episode on this earlier this year or late last year, and one of the kind of like side points, because Graeber always has these like really juicy little side points where he'll just like mention something that's probably worth its own essay and then move on. And then your mileage may vary with them. Some of them are more right than others, but he said basically that anytime there's a strong domestic resistance movement, the ruling class will go and start a war elsewhere. And it creates it helps the domestic dynamics to benefit the ruling party. And it also divides and damages social movements. It empowers kind of like vanguardist, authoritarian modes of organizing because everything's getting reduced to this like us versus them, good and evil, black and white mentality. He makes that connection directly, and it's like when you have these foreign wars, then it empowers groups like PSL or whatever to like go kettle people and ambulance chase, get to the front of the thing, sign up people for their like authoritarian subgroup under their local little cult leader and stuff. And I think there is something to that. I don't know that it's the primary calculus that causes people to go to war, but there is it is the case, I think, that the conflict, the genocide in Palestine, it's been damaging to full spectrum political organizing because it is such a horrific thing. And because it is so important, obviously, but then also people in the United States are so powerless to do anything about it except for march and wave signs and get mad and withhold their votes from the Democrats and stuff like that. So it's I think there is something to that, and I'm not sure exactly how we deal with that reality. I mean, I do think I do know how we should ideally deal with that, and that's build like resilient organizations, build resilient political organizations. But then, yeah, it's easy to say that. Well, how do you build resilient political organizations when everyone's overworked, underpaid, when, you know, there's so much like stress in people's everyday lives paying for their bills and stuff. And then you're like, okay, well now go create a new form of democracy together and make it fair. And people people struggle to do that for sure.
Yeah, so I'm gonna to tie this into some of the other stuff that Graeber says throughout this. I mean, one of the big things he says throughout this book and throughout his work is that like the revolutions he's interested in are the revolutions of common sense. Like that's where the revolution happens. And in that essay where he's talking with Piketty, I don't know how to say that guy's name. French is I don't know how to pronounce really any languages except for English. But when he's talking to Piketty, he says, I think they sort of just agree that like the debt machine is a work machine, and that does seem to be one of the biggest fears of the managerial ruling class is that people will have time on their hands and they will be spared of the constant demand to do work that when Graeber interviewed people about their work, most of them said that their jobs were bullshit and pointless and didn't need to do. So we've got these two fantasies, or these two contradictory aspects of this theory, which is one that everyone constantly needs to be working so that we can have like enough stuff. And then the other thing is like, oh, I'm sorry, we just don't have enough stuff for everyone to have food and shelter. And that just doesn't make sense because we also know they're constantly telling us how rich they are and how many zeros there are on the GDP. So we've got this overabundant prosperity according to the economists, and also a need, according to the economists, for all of us to be working so hard all the time so that we can't actually like care for our children. And Graeber called bullshit on that, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like when I've had desk jobs, I've had computer jobs, I've had work from home during COVID type jobs. We're just dicking around, man. I like there's you do the work. There's an amount of work you have to do, and you're there for 8 hours. But like these like that's where Twitter posts come from, you know? Like people are doing it off the side of their desk. People are doing all sorts of stuff off this. It's weird. I remember when I was working at the job, I felt a certain moral, like a self-imposed moral thing, that if I was like reading something that I really cared about, or if I was working on some instead of my job that I really cared about, I felt kind of guilty, like I was stealing. But if I went to the bathroom for a long time and went on my phone, or I like went to another tab and went on Reddit, I didn't feel quite as guilty. It felt a little more natural. Or if I was talking to my coworker about some bullshit, like we both saw there's a trailer for a new movie coming out, like I didn't feel guilty about that. But then if I actually took those hours and used it to like write an essay about something, I would feel guilty about that because it was like connecting that it was work. But it's totally true that he says, Graeber said that a million times. Everyone says this. Everyone knows this. People aren't working for 8 hours. That's just an empirical fact. That's not even like an edgy anarchist thing to say. That's an empirical fact. The only people who actually work for 8 hours are the low paid people on the front lines who have to assemble widgets, and it's because they have a fucking metaphorical panopticon looking over them at all times, and they're precariously employed, and they're you know the low caste workers in society, so they actually have to work all day. But people who sit at desks, the type of people who go on MSNBC to say the Democrats should be more right wing, they work an hour and a half a day.
Yeah, I one thing that happens every year, we have in the United States, there all of the college basketball teams have this big tournament. It's a really confusing thing. It's called March Madness, and it's crazy every year. Every year March Madness happens, and the same like fucking accounting firm releases the same study with updated numbers, which is amount of money that corporations lost this year because March Madness is the only time really that there's major sporting events during the workday. So it's like, oh no, the US economy lost, and they always quote like billions of dollars of quote productivity because people were watching, you know, Syracuse play UMass at 2 p.m. And the idea that like they can publish this number and we can be like, oh no, think like it's so disassociated from reality. Like these numbers are just so fucking made up. Like Like they actually want us to believe that we could have had just so many more like Ford cars or loaves of bread, but some white collar workers watched a round one game of the NCAA basketball tournament, and I'm sorry, children. That's why you don't have food today.
Yeah, no, that's such a good example of like bullshit kind of economics. Is like you can do a calculation in the spreadsheet, the pattern grid world spreadsheet mindset, and be like, the U.S. economy lost $10 billion to workers pooping on the job last year. And it's like, you think if they held in their poop, there'd be 10 billion more dollars? No, man.
Shawn, I'm getting over pneumonia, so you can't make me laugh that much. I'm gonna cough, and it's gonna kill the rest of the interview.
But yeah, the concept of the debt machine as a work machine, I want to unpack that a little bit and what that means. It's like he's talking about the people being compelled by their debt. Like you systematically put people into debt. You have a whole system that's built on, people through mortgages, car payments, credit card payments, whatever it is. They have this outstanding money that they owe, and he goes into, I'm sure you've went into great depth on the moralistic qualities of debt and how this kind of this paralyzing, like, oh, I'm so ashamed I'm in debt, like I need to pay this off. It's this moral thing, and then that is a motivation for people to work. It is true, and like in times when I was young, I like ran up a credit card once, and then I like actually paid it down like a dipshit, and I did feel like I worked more, and I was like, I felt this. There was this real moralistic quality, like someone had convinced me that it would be wrong to not pay this back, even though a huge proportion of it was interest, which is like another word for paying more money to rich people because they're rich and you're poor. And then it's like the another thing that reminds me of too is like I'm involved in a lot of debates around housing policy right now in this. I've got the YIMBY supply stuff versus social housing type stuff. And a lot of the time, the argument that's being made of like why we can't afford to make new housing that's actually affordable for people to live in is they're like, well, the balance sheet doesn't add up. You got to pay X amount of the new rents have to be at least 2,000. And then you look at the basis for them claiming that, and it's 60, 70% interest that they're talking about paying. So the thing that makes housing unaffordable is paying lenders back at these grand rates. So this huge chunk of our housing costs, of our land costs, of our day-to-day living costs in housing is not being paid to people who build buildings. It's being paid to lenders who lend to purchasers to buy buildings. And so they haven't built anything. They're just rich. And then it's similar too with when it comes to landlords and stuff. Like what gives landlords the right to charge us rent is they're rich and nothing else. They're rich. They can afford to put down the down payment, create the mortgage. So we pay the rent so they can pay the bank. The bank gets the interest because they're rich. They're richer than the landlords. The landlords, they're the middle rich, so they get our labor. And in effect, people who are paying 30, 40, 50% of their income on rent are sacrificing half of their labor to pay off one layer of rich guys so he can pay off the next layer of rich guys. It's totally fucking demented, man. We have to invent this work that isn't doing anything to justify this whole house of cards.
Yeah, I really want to emphasize how much it is, from my perspective, imaginary. I mean, I think I've actually, when I was reading Graeber discussing Piketty, some of the stuff of like what capital is, I think I've gone farther than Piketty and maybe even in Graeber, my conception of what capital is. So here's an anecdote. Maybe this will be interesting, maybe not. But I was reading a book by Clifford Geertz, who's an anthropologist I'm a big fan of, about agriculture in, I don't remember, the place where Clifford Geertz was always, Java, I guess, the place where he always was studying, Indonesia. And he said there was like two ways of developing the agriculture, two forms of agriculture. One was rice paddies, and the other one was like a kind of Sweden agriculture, which simulated the natural rainforest, but growing plants that people could eat. And he said one of these was developed with like, hard labor, and the other one was developed with capital. And I actually, because I've gotten so into the idea that capital is just made up, I didn't understand what he meant by capital. And later he says fertilizer and machinery. And I'm like, well, fuck, it wasn't developed by capital. Capital is just ones and zeros on a page. Fertilizer and machinery that were, bought by rich people and then worked by people who were in debt. But we've allowed, and Piketty says this, Piketty says like capital is good because it can do stuff. He says we have more housing now. Piketty does, because we have more capital. But capital, it doesn't do anything. It's just at absolute best, a like political lubricant. And I think that's what you're getting at when you're talking about the YIMBYs. We need to build buildings. Right, great. So what's the first thing we need? Tons and tons and tons of money. Where are we going to get it? Well, I guess we have to buy it from the people who have lots of money by giving them even more money. It's just a totally made up system, but we're supposed to act like capital is real. Am I crazy?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I always think maybe I'm not up to date on all the definitions of capital that people use, but isn't capital referred to usually like money or maybe broadly wealth? Like if you have a house, you could say that's capital or something, but it's because it's because of the exchange rate it has with money. Like,
yeah, so I think capital just means money. Yeah.
Right. So then this person was using capital to refer to the things in the world themselves.
I think because people think the relationship between capital and the things in the world themselves is like total for people.
Right.
Yeah. No, and that's what Graeber's pushing against.
Yeah. No, it wrinkles my brain too, because I sort of, I think I understand that the material world exists with or without money.
But that's like weird that we think that. We're supposed to think that like money is what brings the material world into existence if we listen to the economists, I think.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, it's interesting. I sometimes I use the phrase economic literalism, or if I want to be a little more casual, maybe I'll say a marketeer, someone who's just a true marketeer, someone who's fully buys it hook, line, and sinker. But that's a level of economic literalism that goes even further. Like I think of economic literalism as being like looking at numbers on spreadsheet and looking at graphs and being like, that is the real world. And that's usually what I'm talking about. But that makes me think like there's even another higher level of economic literalism, which is that you look at someone's library, you look at someone's, house or place that they live, you look at, and you're like, that is numbers on a spreadsheet. It's going even further than looking at the spreadsheet and being like, that's the world. It's looking at the world and saying that's money.
I think so too. So the other example I give from this, there's this famous essay that Graeber likes that I like a lot, John Maynard Keynes's Economic Possibilities for Our Grandkids, where Keynes, who's a mainstream economist, says that roundabout now we should have enough money to not have to work. And Keynes's explanation for why we should have enough money roughly, I think he's like for 2030, is compound interest. He says, due to the power of compound interest, we will be wealthy enough to not have to work. But again, compound interest doesn't affect the world. Compound interest doesn't make plants grow. It just like I can calculate compound interest. I don't know when they teach you compound interest now. They teach you in like middle school or something. Any middle schooler can crunch numbers to prove that the world will be much wealthier 100 years from now. That is divorced from whether or not we actually have enough food for everyone 100 years from now. But the capital people, it's like the math, the numbers are the real world.
Yeah, no, and I mean if we're assuming that money corresponds to the material world and compound interest is increasing the amount of money, then that would just mean that money is worth less in relation to the world. Right?
I agree.
It doesn't.
I agree.
And if we've got a resource base that we're exhausting beyond its replenishment rate, even more so,
it kind of. But this is John Maynard Keynes, man. Like, how can I say that? Because, like, I mean, every time I read this, I'm like, wait, am I confused? Because it seems like this economist wants to believe in money that's totally divorced from the real world, and he's like the good economist. He's like one of the best ones within the world. Piketty also, right? These are the good economists. These are the quote left wing economists. But I think they're full of shit too.
Yeah, no, that's just straight up weird. I'll have to maybe yeah. I don't. I always this is how they get you. These are how these suit wearing fucks get you. Is you think, am I missing something? When you see fucking Kamala Harris come out with Liz Cheney, you're like, do they have some polling that says people want this? Am I wrong? They're wearing suits. They're getting paid. They're professionals. And I think often the answer is actually no. They don't. They're high on their own supply. They have you got people. People get so deep into these frameworks that they start to think the frameworks are the world instead of tools to understand the world. And when the frameworks stop corresponding to the world, they get mad at the world instead of mad at the frameworks.
Yeah. So let me read this bit from Piketty and Graeber and see if you can tell me if I'm misrepresenting this. So Graeber says, you mean to say there's now more wealth per capita than before? So, okay. And Piketty says, clearly, yes. Take housing. Not only is there more housing now than 50 or 100 years ago, but by year of production, housing net of debt is increasing. Like, so far, so good. Like, he's talking about something in the physical world, housing. And then he says, on the basis of annual GNP, if you calculate national capital, parentheses, defined as all revenue engendered by economic activity, and then the total indebtedness of all public and private actors in the country, the former, that's capital, will be seen to have increased relative to the latter in all the rich countries. So first he says we have more housing than we used to. But then he says we have a higher ratio of capital, aka economic activity, to debt. And I think there's a slip there from the real thing, housing, to capital, which is the imaginary thing that we just use to measure the real thing.
Yeah, well, and also like per capita, are we talking about what each person actually has? Or are we talking
No,
about
I don't think so.
adding it all up and then dividing
I
it by
think it's adding it all up and dividing by people.
Yeah, so then it's like, okay, then you could have Jeff Bezos be the god king of the world with $100 trillion and who owns everything, and all of us are his subservient slaves, and we can make the exact same argument that it's, things are, the amount of wealth per capita has gone up.
Yeah.
It's just that one guy is our god king with $80 trillion and the rest of us are subservient slaves to him. That's not a really useful metric, I don't think.
I agree. But I also think, like, I don't know how much Bezos is worth, but I think he's probably mostly worth that in Amazon stock. And if he tried to sell it and turn it into money, that would drive Amazon stock down. So, like, I don't think there's that much money in the world anyway. Like, they're counting stock as money, and they're counting it as totally fungible into money, except stocks aren't totally fungible into money. And if you sell a lot of stocks, they're worth less. But we're constantly told that Jeff Bezos has however many billions of dollars, but he doesn't actually, or at least he doesn't have things that could be converted into that much, but they can be imagined that they could be converted into that much.
Right.
I'm wondering if I'm not making sense, but I'm
no,
trying.
no. That does make sense. It's an interesting point too. Well, I mean, I guess my understanding would be that if he sold it slowly, it could retain its value. But if he sold it rapidly, he would quote unquote flood the market, and therefore he could tank the stock prices for everyone. So yeah, no, I think there is something to that where, yeah, this economic BS is like, yeah, distorting our view of reality, because it's not actually immediately fungible, as you're saying. Yeah, well, on the Piketty discussion, there's a few from the different essays we read for this. There's a few different like policy suggestions and ideas that are floated around. Piketty's really hammering the progressive wealth taxes.
Yeah,
totally in favor.
Yes, agreed.
Graeber really hammering in that interview debt forgiveness and jubilees.
I also agree.
also in
I agree.
favor. And in the other interview, he also talks about 4-hour days, like we're talking
Yes.
about reducing the workday, and alludes to the fact that people aren't actually working that much time anyways. Again, really good policies. And these are all very like radical breaks from the existing policy frameworks, but every one of them has value in its own way. I mean, debts are used, debts as they currently exist are used to force people to work, or even forced to like, they're forced to use less powerful nations to give up their resource base to more powerful nations, using debt as the justification. And as Graeber covers in a bunch of his work, there's a long history of debt jubilees as something which is actually has a stabilizing effect on systems, where you get this runaway unpayable debt. Then you can have like, there's different times where there's like regular jubilees where they regularly clear the debt books. And the 4-hour workday, I mean, I think he says in that interview as well, decelerating the work machine is probably the only way at this point to save the planet, which is kind of like almost a degrowthy point, or but it's also like, again, not only does a 4-hour workday benefit everyone in that you get to come home to your children earlier, you get to pursue your hobbies, etc. And I think like there is, if everyone worked 4 hours 5 days a week, you got enough work in the economy to ensure that the crops grow, to ensure the buildings get built, etc. That the real things that capital corresponds to could continue going forward. And you also like have richer lives. The thing that's a threat to the ruling class, I think all of these things are threats to the ruling class in different ways. But a 4-hour workday, the thing that's really a threat to the the ruling class about that is that it means that we have time to go talk to our neighbors. We have time to go build political power. And debt and oppressive work structures are used to subordinate us politically. And, you know, like, sorry, it's on my mind, but like, you know, people who go and vote Trump, who are going to be harmed by his policies, who are going to have increases to the cost of living and stuff. Like, it's all been laid out. You know, you can read all the different critiques and stuff of like what a abysmal set of policies he's proposed for working class and low income people, and how much they're going to be harmed for it. But you look, they actually increase their vote share with these people in 2024 compared to 2016 and 2020 in the United States. So all these people are voting, you know, against their interests, is what people say. And the case, you read it, it's pretty convincing. You're like, oh yeah, this is really going to harm these people who voted for him. And maybe kind of like the liberal typical response is, well, fuck these idiots, they deserve it. And it's like, well, no, they're busy. Like, they don't know what's going on. Like, they nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves to be tricked like that. And these are professional political suit-wearing fucks who spend their whole day thinking of how to trick these people. And they succeeded in tricking them, and then you're going to be mad at the people who were tricked? I find that just abhorrent morally. But the thing is, if you have a 4-hour workday, then your average low-income Trump voter has time to learn that Trump isn't actually looking out for them. And that doesn't work for the ruling class.
I mean, I would take it even further and say, yeah, Trump's policies are going to be miserable for these people who were fooled by him. But fooling them was not that hard, because he said, I'm gonna fix your life and make, you know, groceries and housing more affordable. And then Kamala Harris is the person who works for the suit wearing fucks, as you say. The person who works for them is Trump, but they're all over Kamala Harris. And so she's unwilling to say, I will fix housing and groceries for you. I mean, she said that a little, and there were some ads, but basically she's, you know, going with the line of like, we need to all work hard and make sure the economists are happy. Now, Trump is the one who's going to feed these people to the economists. I mean, it's indisputable that he is.
Yeah.
But he went ahead and lied and said he wasn't going to, and Kamala told the truth, which was that she was going to. So that's that's how you get this. I think. I mean, that's my rough take on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's true. And it's not like, oh, if they all voted Democrat and we all kept the Democrats, everything was going to be hunky dory for the working class. Not at all. It's like it's the difference
No.
between 100% immiseration and maybe 79% immiseration or something. But the
Yeah.
and then also you have these. This is like it's petty. This is almost lateral violence against on my part. But these people, man, who they're like you're these Twitter dipshits who are like, things are actually good for poor people right now, and they're too stupid to realize it. Their actual wage growth over the last 4 years was 12.5%, but for the top 10%, it was only 0.9%. Oh, and it's like, okay, well, what does 12% increase of wages look like for someone who is in real wages? That's the inflation adjusted wages. What does a 12% increase in wages look like for someone who's living in extreme poverty? You're talking about $150 a month. And yeah, that's a big difference if you have almost no money. But then these people, they go to the grocery store and they see, eggs cost twice as much, bread costs twice as much and stuff like that. And you can be like, well, actually it evens out. Your real purchasing power is up $100 a month. And it's like, that is like this spreadsheet brain, these are these junior economists, these junior suit wearers. They hope to one day be on MSNBC telling the Democrats to move right. And like, but the thing is like, people are busy, and yeah, sometimes they're tricked, sometimes they're misled, but they're not that stupid that they believe you when you say their life is better. Like, the thing is like that they're mad at them because they're quote unquote stupid because they don't agree with them, but then they expect them to eat shit with a smile on their face, but they're not too stupid. They're not stupid enough to do that. So they hate them. It's fucking, yeah.
No, I don't think this is like collateral at all. I think to some extent this is the heart of the issue. The great progressive economist, excuse me, the great progressive economist of the Obama age, Paul Krugman, this was his shtick for the past 4 years, was just like, the economy is great for the working class and we need to stop complaining about it on their behalf because they're just too stupid to realize how great the economy is for them. This is the economist's dream, to use numbers to explain why the lives of the people who do not have enough food, who are working who knows how many jobs with their hours controlled by algorithms and AI, who don't have health insurance because we got Mitt Romney's health insurance plan in this country. I know you have a slightly better one in your country.
They're working overtime to make sure it doesn't last.
Yeah. That this is their life. And then it's like, how dare you be ungrateful? Because I'm looking at GDP and GDP is up. And in fact, workers are getting a higher percentage of GDP than they were. Like, as you say, Shawn, they're getting a higher percentage of GDP than they were in 1999. It's like, right, because 1999 was such a great time for workers that a 4% increase over that is just fucking paradise on earth.
Yeah. No, and it's, yeah, and that breeds the appeal of demagogues and right-wing stuff and authoritarian stuff and the worst strains of politics. And number one, if they're willing to lie, and number two, they're willing to scapegoat. Like, you can't a mass political movement of the working class and the poor is going to be built on a sense of hope. And it's also going to have to rely on people that you can trust. What they say matches your experience. And if economists and their political lackeys, the politicians who believe that economics is the sort of the politicians who believe that politics is built on a base of this economic literalism, and who relay these economic messages of what the truth of economics is to people who don't experience it that way, you're never, ever going to win on those terms because you seem like the liar. And if And the thing is that it might be true that the stock market is booming, right? But know who holds stocks? The top 10% of the population. Like it might be true that according to all of our metrics, of our serious people metrics of how the economy works, things are going up under Biden and they went down under Trump. That's probably true. It seems like it's true. That's what people say. That's their metrics. Okay, fine. But when you're talking to someone who lives in poverty, who can't get access to childcare, who is afraid to go to the doctor because of how much it costs, who his rent is going up, whose cell phone bill's going up, whose grocery bill is going up, they're going to call bullshit on that faster than they call bullshit on some demagogue who says, well, the real issue is there's too many immigrants around. And the real issue is that these Democrats are bringing in these immigrants so they can get their votes, so they can stay in power forever and get rid of democracy, et cetera, et cetera. And you get your Elon Musk to go say that on Joe Rogan and stuff. And look, I agree. They're misled. They're wrong. And it's wrong to believe a demagogue like that. But it's the most predictable fucking thing in the world, isn't it? Like, it's the most predictable goddamn outcome in the world, that you can't be Will Stancil go finger wagging and being like, oh, you ingrates, your real wages are actually up despite inflation. People aren't stupid enough to deny their own experience for your graphs.
Yeah, the one last anecdote on this topic is sticking with Krugman, who I find so infuriating. His thing, which I totally bought, 15, 20 years ago, was like, there is in this country a huge transfer of wealth from, the blue states to the red states, because the great economic generation comes in cities and wealthy areas. And then we, those of us in the big cities, subsidize the red states. But if you look at it, what they're talking about is, again, this made up thing called capital.
Yeah.
Actually, the stuff that makes life possible in cities is this massive transfer of resources, real things like petroleum and the sand that makes concrete and the food that is fed to the cows that are then eaten in burgers in cities. All that shit doesn't come from the cities. It comes from the rural areas. And then Krugman explains to them that the rural areas are the takers, whereas the big cities are the makers. How they're literally making shit, or rather they're not making shit. Some corporation has taken over the farm, and then the goods are being made in China, and they have nothing. And then Paul Krugman explains to them that they are just a taker, even though they would love to be working at a factory, but they can't even get a factory job. They don't feel like a taker. They feel like someone who has had their life stolen from them. And the economists explain to them that it's because they didn't learn to code.
Yeah. No. And then the smug political representatives of the economic class go out and they just proudly say, oh yeah, in our city we generate so much wealth and capital in the form of financializing everything. Yeah. And then you greedy, you're the real welfare queens, farmers. Look at these graphs. Yeah, no, that's, and one of the things, I wasn't able to go and check this. I don't even know where to check this. But one of the things Graeber says, so I'll just take his word for it, because he's often usually right. He says that at General Motors in 2007, 2008, none of their profits came from cars. All of their profits came from financialization deals with customers. So all of their profits were coming in the form of interest to people that they loaned cars on payment plans. So that if they were just selling cars at sticker price, they wouldn't have made any money. So even the car manufacturers, instead of making money on cars, are making money on imaginary systems of capital generation through interest. Because, again, they're wealthy. The car manufacturers have money to produce the cars, and then the people who buy the cars from them are too poor to buy the car, so they have to finance it, and so they have to pay more money for being poor to the people who are so rich they can afford to do that. And their profit that causes their CEOs to get their $1 million bonuses or whatever is entirely coming from the imaginary part of the equation. And he gives us really, really beautiful metaphor. He's talking about how there's these banks popping up everywhere on storefronts, where there used to be stores where you used to be able to go buy apples, or where you used to be able to go buy, the type of stuff that's all moved to Amazon. And now there's these banks there where you have these glamorous rooms full of nothing with armed guards. And they're just these nothing stores, these shiny nothing stores with armed guards. And it's this really potent metaphor of the American economy.
Yeah. Yeah, the guards. Yeah, they're not even guarding anything. It's so beautiful. But you need the guy with the gun there to assure people that there is value in that bank. This is where the money is. You think there's no money here? Look at the gun. That's how you know there's money. I mean, it's ones and zeros, but you get it. You get it. It's a magic.
Here, I'll quote him. It's a perfect expression. These beautiful, shiny nothing stores with armed security everywhere. That's what it is. Both nationally and internationally, we're ruled by a ruling class whose profits are based primarily on complex forms of rent extraction, backed by coercive force. And that when he's right, he's right. That is true.
Yeah. One more thing that I want to make sure that we say, that I meant to say earlier, but I got off track. But he does say that, and I had the economist James K. Galbraith on my show, and this is one of the things that Galbraith says as well, is that this thing that is called economics, or like neoliberal economics, it's actually just a political and moral ideology. It basically says if you have money, you should be able to make more money, and if you don't have money, you should be fucked. This isn't an empirical statement. It isn't based on research. It's barely even based on equations. They make some equations up. Like Graeber tells stories about astrophysicists being hired by Wall Street bankers to make up equations to make money, and then the astrophysicist is lying to the bankers saying that the equations are really complicated when they're not actually, and then the investment people tell everyone else, oh, our equations are really complicated, and astrophysicists made them. It's all made up. There's no empirical reality there. It's just ideology. That's bad. What's worse is, I don't think Graeber says this directly, but I'm willing to say it. The basic claim of the neoliberal ideology is that it's just economics and there's no ideology there. And if you want to make sure that people have food and shelter, that's you thinking ideologically, and they're just serious empirical scientists. But that is not true. And I think in that essay against economics, he has the receipts, as they say. He's got the evidence that this shit is just political, ideological, and it claims that they have the true truth of the universe and everyone else is doing ideology, not them.
Yeah, no, and it's fascinating because it's the opposite, right? It's like you come to you go out bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you say you want to make a better world, and you're like, well, I think people should have enough food to eat, and they should have decent homes to live, and they shouldn't, even if they lose their job, have to worry too much. There should be a reasonable cushion for people, and families should never be in poverty. Children should never go hungry. And it seems like there's enough food at the store to make this work. And
I was looking at the real world, and I noticed that there's lots of rooms that no one is staying in, and also there's homeless people, and gosh darn it.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do something about this.
Yeah, and then if we run out of rooms, I mean, there's hotels and there's office buildings that are empty, and it's like we could work this out. And there's tents, and if you just don't knock down their tent cities, then there's they could stay there, and that's obviously not great, but it's way, way better than the sweep shit. I don't know, like sweeps where you send in the police to steal everything the poorest people own and brutalize them. It's the most disgusting fucking thing in the world. But so, yeah, you observe the world and you say this, oh, I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And you're like, oh, well, so naive. I'll pat you on the head, like still a naive little idiot. Well, look at our graphs that prove this isn't true. And we have to be objective about this. It doesn't pencil. When this line meets this line, that's where the poor people die. Their claim is this objective thing. We have to be steel-eyed about this. We have to be realistic. You can't be unrealistic like you. Then the actual basis of those claims is long empirically disproven. The consensus around, in the banking sector is that this stuff is wrong. Like the consensus around the banking sector even is that, you know, money is created through money. The money supply expands through loans, and then it retracts when the loans are repaid. And so therefore money really does kind of come out of nowhere. It's just, you got to pay a rich guy for it under the current system. And so the whole basis of their objective ideology, their so-called objective ideology, is number one, factually incorrect interpretations of what money is and how it works. And number two, moral claims about how the world should work. It's more evil to take from Jeff Bezos than to passively allow someone to literally die in the street from exposure. That's a moral claim. And it's a moral claim that no graph can justify. It's an evil thought, really. And if we lived in a system where people had guaranteed right to housing, where people, and say we run out of housing, they still have a guaranteed right to sleep somewhere warm. And we make that, and that's our political priority, etc. If we lived in a system like that, and then someone came along and said, well, actually, the true evil would be taking away from the people who already have more than anyone else. So we need to protect their right to keep everything, even if it means letting some of these people perish. And like, no one would be convinced of that argument. It's only that we've inherited a system like that anyone is convinced by anything like that. And also this, I mean, like, it's a little bit of a tangent, but it really bothers me, is people who are homeless. The evidence shows a lot of like, these are people who have their rate of adverse childhood experiences are like off the charts. These are people who were abused as children, or who, like, these are people who've had traumatic brain injuries. These are people who have severe addictions. And people turn to addictions from homelessness. They turn to addictions from hopelessness. And then these suit-wearing fucks will go on MSNBC and say, this is the graph that proves they deserve it. Yeah. It's sick. It's genuinely beyond anything. And like, there's a lot of issues that matter. There's a lot of issues that matter in the world, but homelessness is just like, that is the most repulsive like, that is so sick that anyone that we're not all hands on deck to make sure that the most vulnerable people in society don't have their fucking, not just like the place they sleep, their tent, their items, not just their ID. Well, when you're talking about sweeps, people lose their ID that allow them to get their benefits. But we're talking about sentimental items, pictures of their family being taken from them. And the justification for it isn't political, it's economic. And so it's so important that we have the language, that we have the ability to criticize these suit-wearing fucks in how they distort and our society. They harm people. They kill people with their stupid ideas, with their bad graphs. It's not just annoying that they're on Twitter saying, oh, we lost this election because we went too far left. We need to sell out more vulnerable groups. And that's horrible enough. This ideology of economic literalism is a system of mass systemic murder of human beings. And any like political economic justification for it is they send people to school to learn to not care about this. And it is our job as human beings, and it's our job as educators, and as people who care and think about the world, to call out their bullshit, to talk about why their bullshit is wrong. And these things are connected. Like, these things are connected. The ideology that says that economics is underneath politics, politics must turn to neoclassical economics for permission to save lives, it's an ideology of mass death. It is an ideology that is and you know like yeah, I'm spinning wheels, but this is like, it's the most disgusting thing in the world. It really is. And if you open up that part of yourself that remembers, oh yeah, that's a person who already needed help and they got the opposite. And the reason they got the opposite is because these high-paid, suit-wearing fucks said that is nature. But it's not nature. It's something we created, and it's something we could do differently. And that is one of the deepest values of the corpus of Graeber for me, of the writing of Graeber, is he helped give me permission mentally to know that there wasn't something I was missing. There wasn't something I was missing. Oh, they know better than me. I have to maybe listen, and maybe they can teach me about why this is natural. And I think people need permission on a certain level to know that they're not alone in saying, this is bullshit. And if I have to choose between a single life on the street and the entire stock market, I pick the life. Like, and know why? It's not because I'm some magically good person. That's how everyone feels. You have to go to school for 4 years to not feel that way.
I don't want to say anything, Shawn. Can we leave it at that?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me on. Yeah. It's fuck these suit wearing fucks, man. They're and you know what the thing is too? Here's another thing. Sorry, I want to say one more thing. They're cooking the planet. So we think about our kids, we think about their kids, we think about the future. We're on a path right now. Even if Harris was reelected, yay! We're on a path right now for 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees, 7 degrees of warming. So we're talking about seeing areas of the world with massive food shortages within our lifetimes. We're talking, people are already dying in their homes from these heat waves. People are already dying. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago here in BC where I live, there was an atmospheric river, this huge rainfall. People died. People were hiking. They died from the rain. And what justifies it? What political ideology justifies that? The ideology that says we can't have an ideology. Look at the graphs. It's sick stuff, man. It's sick stuff. So sorry. I know I doubled down and go. I could do that. I could do the whole spiel on that too, but I won't for now. It's these rich fucks.
Another time.
Yeah.
Another time. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for having me on and everything you do over here.
This was awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Shawn.
Yeah, my pleasure.